In a quaint town nestled among bustling streets and vibrant markets, there was once a restaurant known for its delightful ambience and delectable cuisine. The owner, John, a middle-aged man with a warm smile and a passion for culinary arts, had poured his heart and soul into this establishment. The restaurant, Cozy Corner, had been his dream, a place that buzzed with the laughter of families and the clinking of wine glasses during its heyday. John had started his culinary journey as a young apprentice under a renowned chef and had risen through the ranks with his dedication and unique recipes. When he finally opened Cozy Corner, it quickly became a local favorite, known for its cozy atmosphere and John's signature dishes. However, as the economy took a downturn, so did the fortunes of his beloved restaurant. With the market crash, the regular crowd that once filled the restaurant's tables every evening began to thin out. Expenses mounted, and income dwindled. John tried to keep his spirits up, hoping for a turnaround, but the stress was palpable. He found himself spending sleepless nights poring over the books, trying to figure out ways to cut costs without compromising on the quality he was so proud of. The creditors started knocking more frequently, each visit more tense than the last. John felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, fearing he might lose everything he had built over the years. He had borrowed heavily to keep the restaurant afloat, and now the debt seemed insurmountable. Despite his best efforts, bankruptcy loomed large, threatening to engulf his dream and turn it into a distant memory. One rainy evening, as John was closing up, he noticed a man and a young girl huddled in the alley beside his restaurant. Their clothes were soaked, and the girl shivered from the cold. Something about their plight struck a chord in his heart. Here he was, worried about losing a restaurant, while they had probably lost much more. The sight of the girl reminded John of his own daughter, who had left for college last year. The thought of his child being in such a situation was unbearable. He knew he couldn't walk away. Despite his financial woes, he felt a strong urge to help. This decision would soon take him on a journey he never expected, one that would not only redefine his life, but also revive the Cozy Corner in ways he could never have imagined. The man, Mark, and his daughter, Emily, were wary of accepting help. Life on the streets had taught them to be cautious, but the relentless rain and John's genuine concern broke through their defenses. They followed him into the back of the restaurant, where he showed them a small, unused storage room. It wasn't much, but it was dry and warm, a luxury they hadn't had in a while. Mark was in his late 30s but looked older, his face marked by the hardships of life without a home. Emily, only 8 years old, clung to her father, her small face peeking out from under a tattered hat. As John brought in some blankets and a portable heater, he noticed the room through Emily's eyes. It was cluttered with old furniture and boxes of unused kitchen supplies. Seeing this, he cleared a space and set up a makeshift bed. "It's not a palace, but it's better than out there," John said, trying to offer a smile. That night, after ensuring they were settled in, John lay in bed, his mind racing with thoughts about his decision. He had no idea how he'd explain it to his staff or what he'd do in the long term, but something inside him insisted that it was the right thing to do. Over the next few days, Mark and Emily tried to keep to themselves, not wanting to impose more than they already had. Emily was quiet and spent most of her time reading books she found in a box. Mark, on the other hand, was always looking for ways to help around the restaurant. He started by cleaning up the storage room, then moved on to helping with dishes and taking out the trash. John noticed Mark's efforts and began to engage him in more tasks. He learned that Mark had once been a chef, which piqued his interest. Mark shared stories of his days working in various kitchens, his face lighting up with each memory. This connection over food and cooking created a bond between them, and John found a renewed energy in his conversations with Mark. The restaurant staff also warmed up to the newcomers, especially Emily, who won them over with her shy smile and polite demeanor. The regular customers didn't know the full story, but they noticed the subtle changes in John's mood and the atmosphere in Cozy Corner. There was a new sense of life and purpose in the air, something that had been missing for a while. Mark's presence in the kitchen became more prominent as he shared tips and tricks he'd picked up over the years, and John, seeing potential for more, started to think about how Mark's skills could be integrated into the restaurant's offerings. Little did they know that these small changes were just the beginning of something that would transform Cozy Corner and their lives in ways none of them could foresee. John's decision to let Mark and Emily stay was initially out of sheer compassion, but he soon realized that Mark's skills in the kitchen could potentially help save his struggling restaurant. He proposed a small experiment, allowing Mark to introduce one of his own dishes on the menu. It was a risk, given the tight budget and the restaurant's reputation for a specific type of cuisine, but John was willing to take the chance if it meant injecting some new life into his business. Mark was hesitant at first, unsure if his cooking would be well received by the restaurant's regular clientele. However, after some encouragement from John, he agreed to prepare a special dish for the weekend, a rich, aromatic stew that he had perfected over the years of his culinary career. They spent a Friday afternoon preparing the dish together, with Mark leading the way and John learning the nuances of a recipe that was entirely different from anything Cozy Corner had offered before. When Saturday came, they introduced the dish with a small sign on the table by the entrance, "Chef Mark's Special for the Weekend." The first few orders came tentatively, as customers were curious about the new offering. The initial feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with diners praising the unique flavors and hearty quality of the stew. Word of mouth started to spread by the evening, and more orders came in, with some customers even asking about the chef behind the dish. John watched with a mix of pride and relief as Mark's stew became the highlight of the weekend. Emily, who had been quietly observing the hustle and bustle, saw her father in his element for the first time in a long while, and her smile grew wider with each compliment that the customers gave. The success of the dish gave John an idea. He sat down with Mark and proposed a more permanent arrangement. He wanted to introduce a new section on the menu called Mark's Creations, featuring dishes designed and cooked by Mark. It would be a gamble to change the familiar menu, but John felt it was worth the risk given the initial success. Mark was overwhelmed by the offer, but also excited at the prospect of getting back into professional cooking. He agreed eagerly, motivated by the chance to contribute more significantly to the restaurant and perhaps secure a more stable future for himself and Emily. Over the next few weeks, they worked together to refine the new menu section, testing recipes and gauging customer reactions. The community's response was incredibly supportive, with many patrons expressing their enjoyment of the new dishes and their appreciation for the fresh variety. The partnership between John and Mark brought a renewed sense of purpose and direction to Cozy Corner. Customers were now coming not just for the old favorites, but also for the intriguing new additions that Mark created. This collaboration, born out of a simple act of kindness, was slowly turning into the lifeline the restaurant needed to survive and thrive. With the introduction of Mark's Creations on the menu, Cozy Corner began to experience a resurgence. The restaurant buzzed with excitement as word spread about the new dishes that brought a refreshing twist to the beloved eatery. Mark took on more responsibilities in the kitchen, working side by side with John to craft dishes that combined his unique flair with the restaurant's traditional style. As Mark became more involved, John noticed a significant improvement not only in the food quality, but also in the overall morale of the restaurant staff. They were excited to come to work, eager to learn new techniques from Mark, and proud to be part of a team that was making a real difference in the local dining scene. Emily, who had been a quiet observer in the beginning, started to take a small but meaningful role in the restaurant. Under the staff's guidance, she began helping with simple tasks like setting tables and greeting customers. Her presence added a warm, family-friendly vibe to Cozy Corner, endearing the restaurant even more to its patrons. The local community, hearing about the restaurant owner's kindness and the transformative impact it had on a homeless man and his daughter, started to rally around Cozy Corner. They saw it not just as a place to eat, but as a pillar of community support and human kindness. Local businesses proposed collaborations, and the restaurant even started receiving invitations to participate in food festivals and community events. One particularly touching moment came when a regular customer, who was also a local business owner, organized a weekend event to officially celebrate the launch of Mark's Creations. The event featured live music, samples of Mark's dishes, and activities for children. It was a hit, drawing crowds larger than any the restaurant had seen in months. Profits from that weekend alone helped to stabilize the restaurant's finances significantly. The success of the event spurred further creative ideas from John and Mark. They began hosting monthly theme nights, where Mark introduced special dishes based on different culinary traditions from around the world. These nights not only attracted food enthusiasts, but also families looking for a unique dining experience. The newfound popularity of Cozy Corner was a testament to the community's appreciation of John's initial act of kindness and Mark's culinary talent. The restaurant had become more than just a place to eat. It was a symbol of hope and second chances, a center for community gathering and support. John, Mark, and Emily found themselves at the heart of a thriving business and a vibrant community. They had created a new family, not just among themselves, but with every customer and staff member connected by the spirit of Cozy Corner. As they continued to innovate and serve their patrons, they knew they were part of something truly special, crafted from the ingredients of compassion, resilience, and shared human connections. The positive energy and the buzz around Cozy Corner caught the attention of a local food blogger known for her influence in the culinary world. Curious about the stories she'd heard, she decided to pay a visit to the restaurant to experience Mark's Creations for herself. The blog post that followed was glowing, filled with high praise for the innovative dishes and the heartwarming backstory of Mark and John's partnership. Her review went viral, attracting food lovers from neighboring towns and even from the city. The blog highlighted not just the quality of the food, but also the remarkable story of community and second chances that Cozy Corner represented. This newfound attention led to an interview feature in a regional magazine and a segment on a local television show, further boosting the restaurant's profile. With media exposure, the weekend started to see lines of customers waiting for a table, eager to taste the food that everyone was talking about. John and Mark seized this opportunity to introduce even more unique dishes, turning Cozy Corner into a trendsetter in the local food scene. This surge in popularity did more than just increase sales. It breathed new life into the whole neighborhood. Other local businesses began to thrive as well, benefiting from the increased foot traffic. John, always a community-minded individual, organized meetings with other business owners to discuss ways they could all support each other. The success also allowed John and Mark to give back to the community that had supported them through tough times. They started a monthly event where a portion of a day's earnings was donated to local homeless shelters. This initiative was not just a way of giving back, but also a tribute to where Mark and Emily had come from. The community responded by making Cozy Corner their go-to restaurant, not just for meals, but for celebrations and gatherings. Amidst this success, Emily, who had grown more confident and outgoing, started a little weekend baking booth in the restaurant, where she sold cookies and cakes she had made herself. Her booth quickly became popular among the restaurant's patrons, adding a sweet finish to their meals. This little venture also taught Emily valuable business skills and helped her build her own small following. As the restaurant's fame grew, John realized that the spirit of innovation that had saved his business could be spread even further. He and Mark started workshops and cooking classes, sharing their knowledge and passion for food with aspiring chefs and food enthusiasts in the community. These classes were not only about cooking techniques, but also about the power of resilience and creativity. The transformation of Cozy Corner into a community hub showed John, Mark, and Emily that the restaurant was more than a business. It was a place where people could come together, learn from each other, and support each other. It was a symbol of hope and a testament to the idea that even in one's lowest moments, there are opportunities for transformation and new beginnings. As the weeks passed, Cozy Corner became more than just a restaurant. It turned into a place of warmth, community, and inspiration. The small eatery that had once been on the brink of closing was now a thriving hub where people gathered not just for food, but for the experience, the atmosphere, and the remarkable story behind it. One evening, as John was cleaning up after another busy day, he sat down with Mark and Emily. They reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. Mark, who had once been hesitant about stepping back into the kitchen, now felt a renewed sense of purpose. Emily, who had once been shy and unsure, had grown into a confident young girl with dreams of her own. But just when everything seemed to be going perfectly, an unexpected challenge arose. A well-known restaurant chain had set its sights on opening a new branch just a few blocks away. This chain was famous for its aggressive marketing and ability to overshadow small businesses. John knew that it was only a matter of time before they would start drawing away customers with their lower prices and big-name appeal. For the first time in months, doubt crept back into John's mind. He feared that all their hard work would be undone by a giant corporation that had far more resources than they did. He shared his concerns with Mark, who, instead of worrying, simply smiled and said, "We didn't come this far just to give up." Mark suggested that instead of trying to compete directly with the chain, they should double down on what made Cozy Corner special: its personal touch, the unique dishes, and the sense of belonging it gave to customers. They decided to introduce a loyalty program, offering exclusive dishes and special events for regular customers. They also planned a community night, where customers could come in, share their favorite home-cooked recipes, and have them prepared in the restaurant. The community responded with overwhelming support. Customers who had once simply come in for a meal now felt like they were part of something bigger. They started sharing stories about how the restaurant had impacted them, how it had become their go-to place for celebrations, comfort, and connection. Even local media took notice, running stories on how Cozy Corner was standing strong against the corporate giant. The restaurant's loyal customers made it clear that no chain, no matter how big, could replace the authenticity and heart that John, Mark, and Emily had poured into their business. As the grand opening of the rival restaurant approached, John braced himself for a drop in sales. But to his surprise, the opposite happened. Instead of losing customers, Cozy Corner saw an increase. People chose the warmth and familiarity of their local eatery over the impersonal feel of a large chain. John realized that true success wasn't just about money or competition. It was about people, about making a difference. And as he looked around at his bustling restaurant, filled with happy customers and a thriving staff, he knew that no challenge could take that away from them. 2 seconds. As days turned into weeks, Cozy Corner stood strong despite the arrival of the big restaurant chain nearby. Instead of losing customers, they gained even more loyalty from the community. People saw Cozy Corner as more than just a place to eat. It was a home, a place filled with memories, laughter, and the warmth of people who truly cared. John, Mark, and Emily continued working hard, making every meal special, every customer feel welcome, and every moment count. They introduced new weekly specials, featuring dishes inspired by the customers themselves. One night, a regular named Mrs. Turner, an elderly woman who had been dining at Cozy Corner for years, shared a recipe that had been in her family for generations. Mark recreated it, adding his own touch, and it became one of the most requested dishes on the menu. The support from the community grew stronger, and the big restaurant chain started noticing something unexpected. Despite their aggressive marketing, they couldn't match the soul and authenticity of Cozy Corner. Their flashy ads and low prices weren't enough to take away the loyal customers who preferred the warmth of a small, family-run business. One day, a surprising visitor arrived at the restaurant. It was the manager of the big chain's new branch. He requested a meeting with John and Mark, sitting down at one of the wooden tables that had seen countless heartfelt conversations over the years. "I have to admit," the manager began, "we didn't expect this. Usually, when we open a branch, small restaurants like yours struggle. But you're thriving. What's your secret?" John simply smiled. "There's no secret. Just good food, good people, and a place that feels like home. The manager sighed. We've been offering discounts, promotions, and everything we can think of, but customers still choose to come here instead. Mark spoke up. That's because people aren't just looking for food. They're looking for something real, something that reminds them of family, of home. You can't sell that with a discount. The manager left that day with a thoughtful expression, realizing that some things couldn't be bought or copied. Meanwhile, Emily had a special surprise of her own. One evening, as the restaurant was winding down, she excitedly ran up to John and Mark, holding a small notebook. "I've been writing down all my ideas," she said with a bright smile. "Recipes, ideas for decorations, even events we could do. Maybe one day I can help run Cozy Corner too." John felt a deep sense of pride. This little girl, who had once been lost and unsure, now had dreams of her own. Cozy Corner had not just saved a business, it had created a new future for everyone involved. As they closed up that night, John, Mark, and Emily stood at the door, looking out at the glowing sign of their restaurant. It was more than just a business now. It was proof that kindness, hard work, and the power of community could overcome anything. And the best part, their journey was only just beginning. Months passed, and Cozy Corner continued to thrive, proving that a small restaurant with heart could stand strong against any challenge. John, Mark, and Emily had created something special, a place where food brought people together, where kindness was served with every meal, and where every visitor felt like family. One evening, as the restaurant was filled with happy chatter and the comforting aroma of home-cooked meals, John received an unexpected phone call. It was from a well-known culinary magazine, inviting him and Mark to share their story at a local business conference. At first, John hesitated. He had always seen himself as a simple restaurant owner, not someone who gave speeches, but Mark encouraged him. "Our story isn't just about food," Mark said. "It's about hope. And if we can inspire even one person, it's worth telling." A week later, John and Mark stood on a stage in front of hundreds of people, sharing their journey. From the struggles of nearly losing the restaurant to the moment they took a chance on kindness and saw everything change. They talked about how a single act of compassion had led to something bigger than they could have ever imagined. The audience was captivated, and by the end of their speech, they received a standing ovation. Back at the restaurant, Emily was waiting excitedly for them to return. She had spent the entire evening running the small bakery stand she had started, selling cookies and cakes to delighted customers. She proudly showed them the money she had earned, and John couldn't help but smile. "Looks like we have another future business owner here," he said, ruffling her hair. As they sat together after closing time, reflecting on everything that had happened, Mark grew thoughtful. "You know," he said, "for the first time in a long time, I feel like I have a home again." John nodded. "Me too." They had all come a long way, Mark and Emily from the streets, John from the edge of losing everything. But together, they had rebuilt more than just a restaurant. They had built a family. The restaurant's success continued to grow, and eventually, John made Mark his official business partner. Emily, inspired by everything she had seen, decided she wanted to learn more about baking and even talked about going to culinary school someday. Word of Cozy Corner spread far and wide, not just as a place with great food, but as a symbol of resilience, kindness, and community. People traveled from different towns just to experience the warmth of the little restaurant that had refused to give up. One night, as they turned off the lights and locked up for the day, John looked at the glowing restaurant sign one last time before heading home. He had once thought he was losing everything, but in the end, he had gained something far more valuable. The story of Cozy Corner wasn't just about saving a restaurant. It was about proving that even in the darkest times, kindness could create miracles. And as long as people had the courage to believe in each other, there would always be hope.